Okay, try another way of doing live during your broadcast. Okay, now, if I have...
Oh, there you are. 171 Cedar Arts Center is live now.
Okay. The way of do... I have...
Oh, there you are. 171 Cedar Arts Center is live now.
Okay.
I have muted my device.
I'm trying to get it on my iPad now. Didn't like that.
You're sideways.
Sorry?
You were sideways.
Want to get ready. Okay.
So just, instead of going to 171, just go to most recent from the menu.
Menu. Create, discover, settings.
So the three at the bottom, the three.
That's what I'm on.
It should be most recent.
Kirk 171. I actually want to get it as Kirk and not 171. I don't think I need to record on both of them. Okay. 171.
Would you like me to do that for you while you're...
Sure.
Doesn't have most recent on top of his. Alright, we'll just go here. Yeah, I need most recent. Where is that? How do I get that? Here it is.
This is supposed to be on. Did it turn itself off?
Okay, it should be right at the top. Are you not following? Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Where would you like this?
Sitting on that stand right there.
This is horizontal or vertical portrait, so you're going to see portrait here.
Yeah. And then I want the chat stuff.
Ooh. I've muted it.
That's fine.
And here's the chat stuff will show up here.
Okay. If I would go this way with it.
Did it rotate?
Yes, it did.
It feels like that's going to fall.
And one of the things that I'm told you have to get used to is the 15-second delay. The 15-second delay.
That's if you're watching yourself.
Yeah.
But I'm watching you, not you.
Yeah.
Like you're arranging things. Like he's arranging things.
that's going to get noisy.
You have extensions on extensions on extensions.
Yeah.
I think 5 people are watching.
5 people are watching.
I think that's what that means. Doesn't say anything is watching. I guess because that's on my screen.
Yep.
It doesn't say anyone else is watching, but it says live and it has a eyeball. Had 3, then 5, now it says 2.
My clock is not staying on.
You have your the screen is just going to sleep.
Right. Settings.
And if you're just relying on your lock screen, that you're not going to get that to stay on. You need to have to bring up the clock app.
Yeah. I'm just trying to make sure that it stays. It says it's staying on.
Wow, those words are big. Go do your things.
It's part of my things. Okay. Got everything I need.
Set setting. Auto lock never. It's on auto lock never.
I was just making sure. That was on a lock never. Just stick it up, yeah. I feel basically ready.
15 minutes early. I think the clock stopped.
Yeah. That didn't surprise me.
Okay, that has... Whoa! Why am I on camera?
Because I'm gonna rotate this so I can. I thought maybe while we were waiting, I'd set it up so I could talk. And sort of tell people what's going on. That's why you're on camera. Says there's 2 people on. That must be you and me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now we wait.
It's very weird watching the delay with no sound.
Yeah. Ooh, that's still very soft. Should stop picking it by its foot. I'll turn that one over.
Well, that's the undecorated one. You wanted to show that.
I just had some just here to occupy space. I'm going to set them all off to the side eventually.
You want me to share it?
Yes, you can share it.
Who do you want me to share it with?
Anybody and everybody. I was trying to decide if this was recording.
Yeah, it's live.
Choose your privacy and posting setting.
Barb, Jeff.
Looks like I have stopped on the live. Am I locked up?
No,
No.
still says live.
My iPad is locked up. Error loading.
Do something so we can see that it sees it.
Yeah, it did.
Okay.
All right.
Because it only says
So-
there's one watching now.
I have Denise is watching,
Yeah.
and I have my live video. I'm not sure what to say at this point in time.
You only have 5 minutes to kill.
I have 5 minutes to kill.
Oh, there's 3 people watching now. It says.
If you're watching this early, this could be fun and interesting. This is the first live, Facebook Live I have done,
No, you can stop being nice now.
theoretically.
It's only us 2 now. Whoever that person was, they're gone.
Except this is recorded, so people who watch it later will get it too.
And hear us chatting away about it.
And here's chatting away. I'll probably bring this earlier, but if you're still interested, my wife is here. Help me with technology for the first time that I do this. Since this is a new experience for me, it was going to be educational, at least for me. I hope it's going to be fun for everybody. It is a little unusual to try and do ceramics classes in a demo mode on video, especially if you're a beginner ceramics class. I know I've watched many YouTube videos and such, trying to learn different techniques as a more involved pottery person, and it does help with a certain amount of skills and is recommended, but this is the first time that I've ever tried to do a video online. It is going to be a new experience a little bit because I have my phone doing the recording, and then I have my iPad to sort of see what's being broadcast. And due to the fact that the iPad is on delay, it is a little weird because it's not mirroring me. It's just I can see what I did, then 15 seconds later see what I screwed up. So it will be interesting. What I do have here, and we'll show these again, is some examples of the coil bowls that I've made. So if that's what you're watching for your entertainment. I am in my basement studio. It's very much kind of represents how my mindset works. So it's a little chaotic. This is also my studio that I do woodworking in, actually on the same table. So at the end of the table, there's a table saw. That's right, and I got a bunch of ceramic stuff sitting on top of it because it's constantly changing. And I've soldered here, I fix things here. This is sort of my general work table, so it also is part of my ceramics work table. Usually at some point in time I tell people if I talk too much, let me know. I will be glad to shut up, but since nobody can hang out and say you're talking too much, I won't know. These are strange times.
I need a footrest.
I have to go assist my wife with a footrest.
Oh, looky there. Perfect.
So if you push on the board, it won't.
I can make my presence known.
My wife is here so I can manage her technical difficulties.
Mine, so I can manage yours.
I haven't just got you the footrest. All right.
It's officially time, according to my watch.
I officially have 12 o'clock. It says there are 3 people here.
I've seen as many as 5.
So we'll wait for a few more minutes before we get started.
4.
It doesn't tell me who's showing
I don't
up.
know how to know that.
How do I know who's showing up?
You have to say something.
I'm trying to figure out how I know if people are here.
You have to write a comment, I believe.
So I'm not sure how. I know people are here. My phone is not telling me that. So, well, we will go ahead and get started. Oh, Barb Samus. Hi, Barb. She's here. We'll go ahead and get started. I am Kirk Allen. I am an instructor at 171, and as part of 171's desire to reach its students and its people, we are going to try doing these pottery classes online, and this is a demonstration of a coil bowl. I've made some examples here. This is what we're going to make today. It's a coil bowl with the coil pattern still visible on the outside of the bowl. And we're going to do this up. It's going to take about an hour if everything goes smoothly. And I have a few of them at my disposal here. So that one has a pattern on it. This one is just a straight coil just a straight coil pattern on it. And we're going to do the circular one. One of the challenges that we have been given in doing this project was to try using tools that are typically found at home. So as students want to try this at home, they have an idea of what tools they can use outside of the fancy tools that a lot of potters have, like our rubber ribs, our plastic ribs, and we have a fettling knife that's designed for clay. And so, oh, hello, Amanda. So that is what we're trying to do. I am going to adjust my camera to show the countertop that I'm working on. So I'll try to keep track of who has shown up if I can. But
That's
right
what
now,
I'm here for.
I want you to be able to see what I'm doing over, above, and beyond. Normally, when I make one of these bowls, I do it in a bisque bowl. But most people don't have bisqueware hanging around their house, so I got a completely finished glazed bowl or it could be a stainless steel bowl, and that's what we're going to start with. I also have a stainless steel bowl here that we could use. They're about approximately the same size. So I'm going to use the ceramic bowl. It's got some advantages of its shape. The first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that the bowl does not stick. The clay doesn't stick to this inside of the bowl. So we're going to spray the bowl with some cooking spray. And I don't want the cooking spray on my work surface. So I've got an old piece of cardboard here that I'm going to protect my work surface with when I spray. And I'm going to spray the inside of this bowl with some cooking spray. And I just went and got the cheapest cooking spray I could find because I'm not going to eat it. I don't care what it tastes like. So I'm going to spray the inside of the bowl. This will act as a release agent to the clay. And hopefully it will not stick. But it's going to make the clay slide around in the bowl itself. So you'll see me trying to hold the clay in place.
So any particular type of cooking spray that they would use?
My wife is here to help, and she's going to ask questions. I prefer cheap because, once again, I'm not going to eat it. I actually do not want organic because I want the synthetic stuff that's in here. So I just got, this is canola oil cooking spray from Tops. As far as I know, you can use any cooking spray you want to. So as long as you get a nice coating on the inside of the pot, so that the cooking spray will let the clay release. I'm going to start out with just a ball of clay, and because I'm going to put a foot on the bottom of this pot, because I'm going to put a foot on it, I'm not necessarily needing the coils on the center of the bottom. So if I start out with just a small round slab in the middle, that's going to make attaching the bottom piece easier. And it will also help in the process of drying. Sometimes when I've had these dry, if I don't get the bottom well compacted and sealed, the bottom cracks along the coil lines. And I'm trying not to. So what I have here is I have a piece of wood I found out in my wood scrap wood pile, and I'm just flattening this ball of clay into a nice round puck. You can do this with a rolling pin and roll it out. Because I'm trying I don't need it an exact thickness of size. I'm just trying to flatten it out. And I want it about, just a little over 1/4 inch thick. and I'm just eyeballing it. But I like it to be as round as I can, because if it's nice and round, that's going to make the coils as they go around much easier. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this in the bottom of my pot. Put it in the bottom of the bowl, and that's going to start us out. Now, from here on out, we're going to make coils. And my work surface is it's a board that's been covered with a piece of denim. You can use canvas, you can use sheeting material. I have discovered that I like denim. It's durable, it holds up really well, and I usually can buy it cheap on the sale racks at the fabric stores. Now, because it is a fabric, it holds clay, and when it gets dry, if you pound on it and disturb it, you will raise a certain amount of clay dust. As potters, we try to minimize the amount of clay dust we put in the air because we are not into breathing the silica in the clay dust, and it can cause lung problems. If you're hearing another person out there that is sneezing, and I am not, my wife is here.
Sorry, apparently I'm allergic to Kirk's workspace.
So what I'm going to do to help that dust process is I'm actually going to wet the top of my work surface as I roll out my coils. This does a couple of things. It keeps down the dust. It also helps keep my coils from drying out and cracking when I roll them on the surface. I'm going to try to wipe the surface water off a little bit, because if it's really wet on the surface, my coils will actually my clay will slide across the surface. I'm going to start out with just a hunk of clay.
Sorry, y'all.
And I'm going to use the flat of my hands, and I'm just going to roll out long coils. When we talk to the kids, we're going to make long snakes. And I'm just rolling back and forth, my hands in a little bit of an arcing motion, so I can draw the clay out in its length. Working from the middle out. And you're going to see me do a lot of this in this process. I'm trying to get the coils the same thickness the whole length. If I get too thin, I can actually roll back in and compress a little bit and thicken that area of the coil up a little bit. Once I get a coil the same diameter the whole way, I'm going to take my coil and I'm going to lay it up against that cookie I put in the bottom of my pot. Okay. I didn't taper this end. I want to taper this end back here just a hair more. So as I lay this in,
Martha says you do that so well.
many, many miles of coils have been made in my life. And hello, Martha. Glad you could be here.
So why did you taper that end?
Okay, the reason I tapered that in, see if I can show this to you. If you look right here where it starts up against as it slides around, as it starts up against the cookie I made, if I taper the end, it tapers in where the second coil rolls over top of it. And then I can have that space filled in. If I don't taper the end, I get a little gap there that I have to deal with later on. Now, my goal is, on this first round, is to make 3 layers, 3 courses of coils. So I'm going to lay this coil.
Amanda says, nice technique.
Thank you, Amanda. I'll lay this coil, you can see, butt it up against the last coil. And I'm going to run this coil around until I get back to the start where the first coil was at. And I'm going to break it off. And I'm going to work with my fingers, work a little taper in the end of it. So my goal is that there's the same amount of coils on both sides. My bowl is symmetrical. Coil on both sides, my bowl is symmetrical. Now here's where some people deviate from what I normally do. Some people will now go in and they'll smooth out and blend all the coils together, the layers of coil together to get a finished piece. I actually like to do the entire coil bowl, especially if I'm inside a bowl, do the entire bowl itself in coils and then blend all the coils together. So next thing I do is I want some other long coils. And on this bowl, if you notice, we put some spiral coils in the middle of it to give it an interesting pattern. And that's what we're about to do. We're about ready to build all these little spirals. So I'm going to roll out more coil. Once again, trying to get the coil the same thickness the whole way along. And now I'm going to start building those spirals. So I'm just going to take my end. I'm going to coil my first one up. Until I got a coil. And that's eventually going to go in there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this first one out. So as I continue to build coils, these little spiral snaily things, I'm going to keep measuring them to this, the first one. My goal is to get them all the same size.
So what kind of clay are you using?
I am using a kind of I believe it's a cone 6 clay. What this is a clay that we had at the studio. It's a dark color, dark brown clay, but it was having problems in the firing process where during the firing process and glazing, it would blister up. So what I've done to try to manage that, I have a bunch of raku clay that's got a grog in it. And I've had it fired, the raku clay that I have has actually been fired up to cone 10, which is hotter than cone 6. And so my thought is that by blending the two together, I have decreased the blistering problem of the red clay and helped its stability. And hopefully, I've still got it'll still give me a nice dark brown color. May not be as dark brown color as the original clay, but I'm hoping it'll still have a good brown color to it.
So if somebody's going to make one of these bowls at home, what kind of clay should they get?
It all depends on what you want to do with it. I have seen coil bowls fired at a very low temperature, which is an earthenware clay. You could fire it at cone 6, and that's the cone that we predominantly fire at 171. You could even get a higher fire clay that could be fired up to cone 10, or when the studio does do a wood firing in conjunction with Corning Community College, that's the clay that we use. And I've actually seen people fire coil stuff in a raku firing, which is a different firing technique, and has a really hard thermal shock on the pieces. And so the seams are everything. I've seen them that. So any clay will work. If you are going to fire with 171, which we hope you'll all come down and take classes with us eventually when this is over, or watch the class, cone 6 would work just fine. And even the earthenware, we have some earthenware that you could use that would work just fine to that we do flower pots out of for plant and pot sale periodically. So any clay will work. I've actually seen people do it out of clay that they dug out of their backyard, which I was part of a studio that we used to dig our own clay out of the side of a bank next to a retention pond. So I'm just
in our backyard.
It just happened to be right behind our house. Now that I've got these coils made, if you look, the back side of the coil that was on the tabletop is kind of blended in. Well, I don't want to blend them much, so I'm going to flip all these over and make sure that the nice coil side is out. And I'm going to place these in the pot all the way around, and we'll see if I've made enough to make it all the way around.
So Amanda says that they're tentatively scheduled to do raku during the rescheduled Glass Fest, which is currently slated for August 1st.
Yes, we are going to do raku at August 1st.
And raku is kind of exciting to watch.
Out of all the firing techniques, raku is the, I guess I shouldn't say the most. Raku is one of the interesting firing techniques we have that we can do, because in the raku process, you start with your clay pieces at, well, I'd say room temperature, but outside temperature. We put them in a kiln. We take them up to about 1900 degrees Fahrenheit, which means they're nice and glowing red. We open the kiln up. We pull those pieces out with tongs. We put them in a combustible material, sawdust, newspaper, dried grass, all kinds of stuff you can use, and
shredded paper. And
we put them in there, lots of flame, lots of smoke, and about half an hour later, we pull them out, we wash them up in water, and now you have a piece that you can hold in your hand again and take home. Now, because I put my original in there, I need to get it back out.
Your measuring stick.
So, well, yes, we'll do raku in Glass Fest. If you aren't in a pottery class and want to come and watch us do raku, it is fun to watch. So definitely track us down at Glass Fest. And we do raku other times in the process.
So in the future, when you actually can have a raku class at the studio, it would be posted on 171's website. If you're not taking the class, can you come and watch that?
Sure. You can come and watch, because we'll be outside. We've done raku outside in the parking lot at 171. We've done raku for Glass Fest on the streets of Corning, downtown Corning. We've done raku in the parking lot at Corning Community College next to the ceramic studio there. Let's see what else we've done. We've done raku in the backyard of private homes.
You're done with your little spirals?
I'm done with the spirals. They're all in there. Went all the way around. Now I've got some gaps in here that I want to fill with something more decorative. If you look at the example, I put little balls of clay in those corners. So I'm going to make those balls of clay. And the easiest way I've discovered to make them is I take a coil, and I'm going to cut this coil into little pieces, all about the same size. I almost feel like I'm making gnocchi on this process.
So Amanda asked, do you need to scratch and slip any of the coil parts together?
Some people do. I do not.
First, explain what that is in case someone watching doesn't know.
Okay, scratch and slip. We'll just use this as an example. Sometimes when you're joining your coils together, you'll go along and on each coil, you'll take a knife or something, and we're going to scratch the edge of the coil. And then what we do, it's like if this is going to be in there, we'll scratch it. And then when we lay another piece of coil on top of it that's been scratched, we'll take some water. I have a paintbrush that has water in it. We'll put water on the surface, and then we will bind those two together, and that will give us a better bond between the two than if the technique that I use. But I'm going to do an awful lot of compression and work on it, and I don't want to see on the outside, I don't want to see the scratch marks, so I haven't been doing that. So you will get a better joint that way, but I haven't had a problem just going through and blending it all together once it's together. But that's why I want to make sure my holes are all filled in, because I need that clay to be bonded there. And I will scratch and slip the foot on when I finally get to that point. So it does help. And as it has been said, I didn't create this one. The scratch and slipping is like creating a rough surface so the clay sticks together, kind of like Velcro sticks together. It helps it join together. And I'm not using slip, I'm just using water. And in the scratching process...
So what's the difference between water and slip? Water is water.
Okay, yes, water is water. We all know what that is. And slip is a slurry of water and clay together so that it moves. I've got a great big jar of slip. So I guess I could slip everything with this. This is a jar of porcelain slip. So slip is, instead of just water, it's just a thin slurry, almost like a milk shape of clay that you can join together. And that slip now helps provide some wet clay to help those joints clay joints interlock. Now I've taken these. I'm going to take these little pieces of clay that I made, and I'm going to roll in my hands to make little ball bearings, little clay balls, and I'm going to push them in those joints. To fill that space up.
If someone wanted the holes, the gaps in the bowl as a design feature, would they be able to do that with this technique?
Yes. But what you have to do then is you have to make sure that when you blend everything together, you don't fill the holes up. And that's where, when I blend this, once I get them all together, I'm going to work on making a smooth interior. One thing that I do like about doing bowls is I like them to be functional enough that I can, use them. And one of my best examples is when I get done making a bowl, I'll look at it, and one of my criteria is, will this hold ice cream? Yep, I can eat ice cream out of that. So I like the inside of the bowls intact and solid because I like to serve food in them. or eat out of them. And so I like that functional side of a bowl. But you could do this and put this all together with coils, leaving the spaces open. Now I put little dots around the bottom edge of the coils. Now I'm going to do it around the top edge of all the little spirals.
So if someone wanted to leave the texture of the coils on the interior, they should probably do that scratch and slip, because they won't do the smoothing that you're going to do next at the end.
Correct. The other thing you could do is, if you wanted to leave the texture on the interior, you could do the same technique on the outside of the bowl. So like this bowl, like the stainless steel bowl I have, is pretty smooth on the side. It doesn't have a foot involved. So I could do the same process on the outside of this bowl and have the texture on the inside. Spray the outside, do this whole process on the outside of the bowl. The advantage of doing on the inside versus the outside is this: when I'm on the inside, the bowl itself sort of supports the entire structure, where on the outside, it has a tendency to want to slide down the outside of this structure. The other thing that happens is, when I normally do this process, I like to leave my clay bowl in the form bowl a while, and then let it dry so it stiffens up, because once it stiffens up, it's going to be easier to work with. And so it's easier to get it out of the bowl. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to roll more coils, and I'm going to do a little bit different technique on putting the coils in, so that the coils, you won't see a start and stop of the coils. So there are different ways you can do this when you put these in. You can do some coils, you can run one coil all the way around and start and stop it, and then start the next layer and cut it off and do the next layer with another coil. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same technique, but instead of having a start and stop location, I'm going to join the coils together outside the bowl and put them all in so that they you don't see where that it looks like one long continuous coil.
There's no seam.
No seam in between the coils. One other technique you can do with this, which will doing the score and slipping, is you could actually make this bowl outside of its form bowl if you wanted to, and just build it up freehand and make a bowl. I've seen some people make some pretty large coil stuff completely in freehand. And what happens a lot of times there is, the process is, as you work, you need to stop periodically for the day and let the the material that you made so far firm up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend these together into one long coil. So I'm just overlapping the clay a little bit. And at that joint, I'm going to smear that joint together. Okay, there's one piece. Another piece added. So I'm making, by doing this, I'm going to end up with one very long coil.
Make it a complete loop?
No. So I've got one long coil, and now what I'm going to do, I'm going to start laying this in my bowl. Oh, I missed a spot on my little beads.
Sorry, I didn't count them.
Fixed. Okay. Now, where did I start my coiling around? Right here. So once again, where my coil started, I'm going to finish so that my bowl is hopefully symmetrical. I'm going to use that coil in a minute. So now I've got all my coils in the bowl. I'm just going to make sure they're tacked down a little bit. Now I'm going to want to start blending this all together. Normally I would use a tool that I have that's got a nice round edge, or a metal rib, because I like the ends on the metal rib. But
Show the rib.
I tried to show the metal rib. But I know everybody has spoons, so I'm going to start with a spoon. Let me slide this over a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing on the inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a spoon in my hand, and I'm just going to start blending these coils together. I don't want to compress it too hard at this point in time, because I want to leave as much of that coil texture on the outside as I can. So I don't want to compress it too much. I want to compress it some. So I'm smooth out the circles with my right hand, left hand. Now, because of these dots, I got some gaps between them. So I'm going to provide a little bit more clay to fill those gaps in. So I've got this piece of coil that I've coiled out. I found a piece of dowel, and so you could use a rolling pin, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flatten this out pretty thin. And I'm just using one end of the dowel, rolling along it so I can flatten this piece of clay out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as a backer to fill in the gaps where my beads are.
Like a patch.
Like a good, nice patch, yep. And so I'm just laying it over top those to fill the space in behind there. So I don't have to do a lot of clay to get it to fill in. All the way around. Okay. Now I'm going to make another one. And I'm going to do the top location.
This just helps make the bowl be solid.
This helps the bowl be solid, makes the bowl be more solid. It fills that gap in, so I don't have to rely on the clay that is in those beads and coils to fill all that space in. And I'll get more of the texture. I'll leave more of that coil texture on the outside that I'm after. Now back to my spoon, and I'm going to start blending this. Got a little space I missed. Blending this in on top. So I'm going to go down first, to blend it in. And then I'm going to go up. To blend it in on top of the coils, on the top of those our snail items. Let's go around. I'm going to do the same thing on the top. One of that ribbon of clay I put in. Then I'm going to go take that ribbon up. Now, I'm not too worried about how neat or flat I make the inside. I'm just trying to marry all this clay surfaces together on the inside. Now I'm going to go to the top coil. I'm going to gently with my spoon and flush it out. Get that joined together too. So everything is all those seams are blended together.
So have you done enough now to make it structurally solid?
Yes, I've done enough now to make it structurally solid, but I'm gonna blend some more together to make it even more structurally solid. So instead of doing my rib, I went and found a lid that I like. I believe this is off of a pesto jar, and I'm going to start using that in long strokes to start smoothing out the inside. And what I'm using with my left hand is I'm actually going to hold the clay in place, because if I just push this, the bowl slides around because of my cooking spray. So I'm holding it in place, and I'm just trying to smooth all that stuff out that I've been blended together. And get the interior of the bowl to be smooth and blended together from the rim all the way to the foot. Okay. Now I'm going to go, I went from the top to the bottom. Now I'm going to go around the outside.
So is there anything in particular that you should be looking for to know that you're done with this step?
Is it smooth on the inside? That's what I'm not looking for. I'm just trying to smooth it out. Now, because I want to make it smoother, it's pretty still rough inside, I went out and took a Barnes & Noble gift card.
Hopefully that was used.
Yes, it was. And you could use an old credit card, you could use old room keys, you could use any kind of gift cards, anything like that. And I cut an arc in it, just randomly cut an arc, sanded a little bit to smooth the arc out in the edges. I'm going to use this rib, and this is what I'm going to use to do my final smoothing out on the surface. So that because if I got a nice smooth surface, when you start using it for cooking, especially when you have to clean up, I won't have any texture for foods to get in. And if you notice, my clay bowl slides around in my finished bowl a little bit, so I just push it back where I want it. And this too will help blend those surfaces together to hold the pot in place, to hold it all together. And I'm just gently sliding from the top rim down into the bottom where that initial cookie was. Just smooth this all together. Now, the inside's pretty smooth. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to pay attention to that rim a little bit and smooth it out so that all the little nicks and scratches that I've put in there as I've gone along the way, or bumps and dents, and smooth it out to be close. The next move is going to be a little bit noisy because this is so soft that when I pull it out of this pot, it's going to want to flop around and collapse. So I'm going to take a quick moment to dry it.
Now, you normally would just let it sit.
I would normally let this sit, but I would like to get it done. So I'm going to crank up my 2 hair dryers. Let's see if that's enough. Yeah.
So you only need to do that if you're rushing the...
Yeah, I'm just trying to rush the process a little bit. Okay. Yep. Now, I want to flip this out, and I want to flip it out on something that I can pivot on and act as a... and act as something that I can spin around as I work on it. So I'm going to put on a piece of cardboard. And so I have, the bowl has lifted out of the pot. Normally I use like a plastic bat or a piece of wood, but in this day and age, people seem to have an awful lot of cardboard hanging around. So now I'm going to put a foot on this. So I'm going to wipe off a little bit of that, gently wipe off that cooking spray so I can get back to a surface that I can blend together to mount a foot. And usually I let this sit for a while so it becomes what's called leather hard, stiffer. Oh, and on the drying process, like I use the hair dryers, you can use a heat gun, is what a lot of ceramicists prefer. And stuff.
Set it in front of a pan.
And set it in front of a pan. My tabletop is dried out, so I'm going to re-wet it because I'm going to roll some more clays, roll some more coils.
So if somebody's leaving it in the form bowl to dry, you know, what conditions do they need it to be? I mean, I'm guessing you don't set it in the sun.
Well, all depends on how impatient you are. I have a dry box here, so if I was really impatient, I could actually go put it in the dry box, which is an enclosed container with a little heater in it, and dry the temperature out and dry it out pretty fast. If I leave it just sit in my basement, it usually takes, I could probably let it sit out for 24 hours and it'll be dry where I want it to. So it's all really a matter of how impatient you want to be.
What if you had to stop halfway through?
If you have to stop halfway through, I would take your bowl and everything and put it inside a plastic bag, wrap it up in plastic so that it stays relatively soft. It can get leather hard, but the closer and more, I get my brain around my tongue, the more dry it is, the more you're going to have to do something like a score and slip, because this clay is still pretty wet and pliable. It's quite easy to blend it together and get it to stay. Okay, I'm rolling out a super thin coil that we're going to use in just a moment. And this is where I'm going to score and slip, because I'm going to have very little contact with the process, between the foot and the pot. So I'm going to go ahead and score and slip it. So I'm going to start out with, usually I use a pin tool, but in my desire to try using stuff at home, this is just a good shish kebab skewer, bamboo shish kebab skewer. That's got a point on it. And I'm going to use that to draw a circle. So I rolled out a coil first for my foot, and I joined it in a circle the size that I want the foot. And I'm going to take the shish kebab skewer with it on my pot and just draw a circle around on the outside, and I'm going to do it on the inside. I'm going to remove this, and now I have two lines, and I know that I want to score in, not necessarily in between the two lines, but I don't want to score any farther out on the outside line, but I can score a little bit further on the inside line, because I want to have a scoring mark where I'm going to attach my foot to. We're doing good. Now, so I've got that scored all the way around. Let's do some this direction too. Just to make sure I got it. The other thing that helps with this scoring is because I'm using just water, that scoring is going to actually help generate its own slip in this process. So I'm going to set this coil back on top. Oh, let's do this first. I'm going to take my paintbrush with water, and I'm going to put some water in on that area.
Yeah, do you need to score the coil?
I am not going to score the coil, because that part of that coil is going to be seen, because I'm not going to blend it all the way in, and I don't want the score marks to show up on the outside of the coil. So I'm going to put that in place. I'm going to try to wiggle it around a little bit to compress it on a little bit. Okay. Remember, I rolled that small coil out? What I'm going to do with that small coil is I'm going to put that on the inside of the foot to give me a little bit more clay to work with to blend that foot in. Okay. So I got that laid in place. Now I'm going to take some water, and I'm going to put that in place. So now I've got some water in there to help with the blending. I go back to my spoon. And this is one reason for the cardboard. I can take and spin my pot with it being on the cardboard, and I don't have to pick my pot up.
So now you've finished assembling the pot, and we talked about it drying. What would happen next?
After this, what I would do is, because I've made all these blended joints, just to be on the safe side, is I would take my pot and I'd wrap it up in plastic and let it sit in that plastic until all my joints became the same level of dampness. So like right now, the inside of my pot is actually drier than the outside of my pot because I dried it, put the hair dryers on it. My foot is going to be wetter than the pot because I put water on it to do this score and slip process. So I would wrap it up in plastic and let it sit so all those joints show up together. And I would actually wrap it up and let it sit upside down with the rim down and the foot up.
About how long do you think?
I would leave it for a day.
Then what?
Then what I would do is I would take it out of the bag, depending on how what your climate is. Take it out of the bag and let it dry upside down. And the reason I want it dried upside down is right now there is one surface area that is exposed for the bowl. If I dry it right side up, the bottom has one surface area, but all the walls have two surface areas to dry. So they're going to dry much faster. And I don't want it to dry any faster than I want it to, than it needs to. I want it to dry all the same distance. Now I've got a little bit too much water in the middle of there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry this a little bit to suck up that extra water.
So what would happen if you dried it the other way and the sides dry faster than the bottom?
You see what's in the bottom of that pot? Can you see it? There's a crack. That's what happens. Your bottom cracks, and now if I go ahead and fire that piece, it's going to get more and more, that crack's going to get larger and larger and larger, and eventually it's not going to hold water. Now, I could still use it as a planter, because planters like to have holes in the bottom of them, but they're not necessarily very happy with cracks in the bottom of them. Okay, so I've got the foot attached. Now, second last thing I guess I'm going to do is I'm going to take my skewer and I'm going to sign the bottom of my piece because we want to know who did it. And if you fire in a community studio, you want to know who did it because somebody else may have made the same thing and you can't tell the difference.
So if someone's trying this at home and they don't have a kiln, how are they going to get their pieces fired?
If you try this at home, one thing that 171 can do is we do have a fee schedule for people firing their stuff in our kilns at 171. And you can contact 171 and find out what that firing schedule is, what that payment schedule is, and we can fire it. We don't do a lot. It's a pretty busy kiln just with the classes, but it can be done. Or you can also, check a local potter and see if they're willing to do the same thing. I know Ithaca has it. There are potters across the country that are willing to let people bisque in their pieces in there and possibly help them get them glazed. So you can.
But your kitchen oven would not do it.
Your kitchen oven is not going to take care of this clay. So I put another piece of cardboard on the bottom just so I can pick it up and flip it over. That gives me a nice handle. So now, once I get it flipped over, I can look at the rim again and make sure, because this is the first time I've seen the rim on the outside because of my bowl, the presence of my bowl.
3 minutes.
Okay. And check that rim out. And that is a coil bowl done. Let's see if we can't hold it up here. You can see what it looks like. With the pattern on the outside. So, if you're interested, and I hope everybody is, this bowl bowls has been part of a 3-bowl series where we've had 3 different instructors from 171 doing bowls from, I'm going to get my phone here so I can talk to you. The bowls are 3 of them. One was been done by Martha, and one by Amanda, and one by I. We've done a slab bowl, we've done a throne bowl, and we've done a coil bowl. And tomorrow at this time, the 3 of us are all going to get together, all in our own studios, on the Facebook, and we're going to do a goblet. We're all going to throw goblets as part of a Corona Goblet challenge, and do goblets all at the same time. They're all going to be a little bit different. Maybe all be thrown in different ways. So come join us. We are also working on doing some classes on different techniques in hand building and throwing as part of 171. So you can come and join us there. You can find out about those on the 171 Facebook page or the 171 website. Those will be some paid classes where we're talking about techniques. And my first class starts next Monday. So come join us there. We're glad you've come to join us. I think, according to my clock, I've got 1 minute left. So thanks for coming. This was the first time I've done this online and talked for an hour. Well, it's not the first time I've ever talked for an hour and said nothing, but the first time I've done this online, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to learn more, when 171 opens, please come take classes. Playing in clay is always a good thing. And at this stage, if it doesn't work, like my one cracked bowl, if it doesn't work, I can put that bowl in water and recycle the clay. So it's 100% recycled at this point. So enjoy. Get out there and give it a try. Thanks for watching, and come back and see us tomorrow. You'll see both Martha, Amanda, and I all on the wheel. So it should be fun. Talk to you later. Bye.